So, for whatever reason, I wasn't keeping track of the live stream, the YouTube live stream. And after talking for a while, I wasn't really looking at it. I wasn't really paying attention. I had these big white screens in front of me. Chow says click accept. Okay, so if you were in the apparently I streamed for an hour and my face was frozen. So I don't know, the audio was working, right? The audio was working, or I don't know if people could hear me. I don't know why it froze. I suppose I should have had something to keep track of it. But I didn't. So let's see. You have to chat. You do have to check the chat. Amazing. Well, we learn new things every day. So that is lost forever. Everything I said was not important and did not matter. And that's fine, But we did. Let's see what people were saying while I was frozen in time, frozen in space. Go back to the shadows, test videos. A constant loading screen. The stream is down. Let's see. Harry Potter character. No one is watching, but I am watching. Am I no one? You could be no one. This will be the most liked video. Oh boy, neck is like that of a goblin. Are we talking about me? My neck is like that of a goblin. That's a pretty harsh. Let's see. Can I ungoblinitize my neck, or is my neck always going to be like that of a goblin? Let's see if I have perfect posture. If I go into anterior tilt and I really use all of my muscles. Are we talking? I don't know who we're talking about. Contempt. John Cochran videos. Who is John Cochran? Is he is a Survivor contestant? Is this who we're talking about? Do I look like John Cochran? I don't know. John Cochran kind of looks like looks red-haired. I don't think I have red hair. But maybe we'll see. Look. You guys still here? It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Should give alternative videos. There we go. Needed to refresh. Sweet Baby Ray's video. I have no clue what's going on. It's so hard to read these comments. I don't think these comments are worth reading. I don't think they are. I think we're just going to delete those. You have a voice twin that has a goblin neck. Annie D does a nice little message redacted. Thank you, Annie D. So let's take a look at this guy. Mr. Cochran. What was his name? John Cochran. Apparently he is my voice twin. He is a man who sounds like me. So I'm going to turn that down. I'm going to get to a point where John Cochran is talking. Come on, John. Move your lips. Flap your lips a little bit.
And somehow it's still relevant.
I don't think he sounds like me.
I don't know what I'm so spectacular special. Just more that people are committed. You're all super fans.
I do not think I sound like Survivor winner John Cochran. That's just my opinion. Okay, so what were we talking about? What is important? Should we still have a stream? Is there anything to do? It's hard to. Central. Let's see where communications drop down. The video. What is the consequence of this? The stream apparently lasted 1 minute 19 seconds. That's amazing. We're just talking about talking at this point. We're going to take a look. Oh boy, I can hear myself. This is weird. This is very strange. Why can I not click on people's names and see their channels? All right. So to answer one of these questions, because I don't know how to reorient myself now. All right, let's just try to do it. I'm gonna sort of minimize things. Let's see if I can zoom. Let's see how I zoom here. I want to kind of zoom. I want to zoom things so that I want to keep an eye on this. I don't trust YouTube anymore. I don't trust that they're going to live stream me. So I've got to keep that open there. And then I'm going to bring up my big white screens here. Okay, that's good. And pull this up a little bit. All right. Well, oh, that's too far. That is way too far. So we were talking about, and I just got my upper back is so sore. We were talking about orientations. We were talking about the idea of heaven and earth rather than heaven and hell. And I guess that's maybe a Nietzschean way to put it, because Nietzsche talks about the high versus the low, right? Nietzsche talks about those who are high versus those who are good versus those who are bad. Whereas the heaven hell distinction is you're either good or you're evil. You're either good or you're like perverse and evil. And it's almost the contrast between those who are excellent, those who are successful, those who are pathetic. And then you have the contrast between those who are pure and those who are, like actively doing something evil, those who are impure. So we think about it in that way. And concerning these ideas, trying to see where I can go with that, because I wanted to really talk about the way in which we have to have some kind of visibility or perception or orientation, or maybe like archetypes. I got into Myers-Briggs. We talked about so much stuff. Now I know how you guys feel when people are like, where are all your videos? Why did you delete your videos? And I'm like, why did I just talk for an hour and it is lost forever? But now I understand. So you have to have, I don't know how to say this, but you need to see things visibly outside of yourself in order to orient yourself with respect to these things. This is what I'm trying to say. I don't know if it makes a whole lot of sense. But what I mean by this is like you can't just have the example of what is good. You also need the example of what is bad. You can't just be told, do this, do that, do this, do that. You also need to be told, don't do this. You need to be told the negative things. And it's not just that you need to be told, but it's that you need to see. You sort of need to see. And the example I used was in medieval Europe, in the public square, that you would see these people hanging from the gallows. You would be walking through the public square and, oh, there's a dead guy. And it was sort of part of the ecology of your environment. No one questioned it. It wasn't until the Chartists in Britain in the 19th century decided that we don't like the idea of dead people in the public square anymore. We're going to ban that. We're still going to have hangings, but they're not going to be public. We'll still have execution, just won't be in public. And I connected this with the image of Christ on the cross, the image of martyrs, the violent imagery of medieval Europe. People are getting their heads chopped off. There is a presence of violence and evil in people's lives that they can see, they can touch, they can feel, they can smell. I mean, you can smell dead people. You can smell defecation in the streets. You can see sickness. You can see people who are lepers, right? So what I'm trying to say is that there was a constant reminder of, if you don't do the good, if you don't do good things, if you are not healthy, if you're not pure, if you're not excellent, if you break the law, if you go against what's natural and right, if you anger God, right? Whether these things are true or not, but it was just a constant reminder to people of like, here is the consequences. Here's what happens. Whereas I think, especially post-Soviet Union, there really is nothing to point to and say that's evil anymore. And so we've had to reorient ourselves. And I think the new reorientation is about immigration. the new orientation is about immigration. Now, I don't think that's necessary. I think the new orientation could be artificial intelligence and genetic modification. I talked about the Myers-Briggs types, and I was looking through them: introversion, extroversion, intuition, sensing, feeling, thinking, perceiving, judging. And I honed in on this aspect of perceiving and judging, because judging to me seems to be about order, and perceiving to me seems to be about chaos. And it seems to me that people in general need this spontaneity. They need to feel like things are possible. And one of the ways that we can be made to feel that something is possible is immigration. It opens up a new field of possibility. For the left wing, this is important because the left wing doesn't want to feel dead and static. At the same time, the right wing needs an enemy. And we've defeated the Soviet Union. We've defeated socialism. So to beat the dead horse of socialism is really tired. It's really boring. Young people don't like it. They don't want to do it. Young people just don't care. Young people are like, you know what? Baby boomers have basically exploited Europe, the third world, post-World War II. Baby boomers were the beneficiaries of this economic exploitation done by the United States. They hoarded up all this wealth, and a lot of their wealth, like the Social Security system, was set up in a way that borrowed from the future, saying that we're going to pay your pension, we're going to pay you for your health care, we're going to pay for all these things by using the labor of young people. Young people resent this. And so there is this feeling amongst young people that maybe a little bit of socialism would balance it out, make things more fair, that older generations are hoarding all this wealth. They've got all this wealth trapped away. Well, maybe we should free up some of that for young people in the service of life and new generations and raising families and new projects and new ways of thinking, because just having old people hoard wealth, I should say, is going to lead to the stagnation of our society. And the destruction of our society is what these young people are saying. So it's not just a simple, like, I want free stuff, but there is a kind of ethos behind it. And people just don't care about the socialism versus capitalism thing anymore, increasingly. So what is the new enemy for the right wing to fight? Because as I said, the left wing needs an encounter. If we let's put it, I want to be sensitive about this. But what I'm trying to say is that there's some people who are passive. And the way that they conceive of the other, or the spontaneous, or chaos of the dynamic, is they imagine themselves, oh, I'm just a passive little person doing my thing, and la, la, la. And then all of a sudden, the demon comes, the beast comes. Like in the case of 50 Shades of Grey, this is the billionaire. He comes into my life and he whisks me away. In the case of Vampire Diaries or whatever, I don't even remember what the name, I can't remember. Twilight, there it is, Twilight. So in the case of Twilight, you have a person. She's just la da 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 da. She's just waiting. Oh, I wish something would happen in my boring life. My dad is so boring, and my life is so boring. Everything's great. And then this sparkly vampire comes, and he mixes things up. He's dangerous. He's violent. Maybe he's even abusive. Maybe he's problematic in certain ways. But he mixes things up. He introduces a new will to live, a vitality that is welcomed by the passive-minded person. The passive-minded person sees the foreign, the other, and they want it to come into their lives. They're waiting for it to come into their lives to spice things up. There, you could say there's a reproductive, evolutionary psychology thing going on. There's another perception, though, which is this active perception versus the other, which is we have to go out there and identify and find out the things that are strange, the things that are weird. We have to go fight them. So this is the colonialist. This is the person going to the lost world, finding the treasure. This is Bilbo leaving the Shire and going to fight Smaug. You know, this is Siegfried going to fight dragons. This is, you know, Marduk versus Tiamat. So he's leaving the central, rather than the passive perspective, which is like, oh, we're going to sit here at home and wait for something crazy. You know, our fairy godparents, or, you know, maybe there's going to be some visitor, Peter Pan, I don't know. but someone's going to come into the house, sneak in through the window, and do something a little bit crazy, do something a little bit spontaneous. Whereas the active-minded person says, no, 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 we don't want that coming into the home. The home is supposed to be ordered and perfect and safe, like a Dickensian novel, Charles Dickens, the concept of the hearth in the home, the safety of the home versus the outside world. So the active person is leaving the home, going out of the home, and trying to basically start fights with the other, trying to identify dragons and demons and ghosts and otherworldly creatures, things that they can challenge themselves against. So these are the two perspectives, but both of them rely upon the other. The passive person relies upon the other to come into their life, whereas the active person relies upon the other in order to be an opponent against which they test themselves and they fight and they struggle to strengthen themselves along their moral journey. So the other serves as this pole of orientation that creates this dynamism that ignites within us the will to live, the will to struggle, the will to do, the will to be. The passive person lives on the hope that maybe someday I'll be whisked off to Hogwarts. Maybe Peter Pan will come. Maybe a vampire will come and start dating me. Maybe a werewolf. Maybe a king. Maybe a billionaire. And you see this, unfortunately, with serial killers and people who are mass shooters. They get a lot of love letters. They get a lot of women who really take this concept of passivity to an extreme degree. And they say, I understand you. And they're attracted to that dark triad, right? So they're attracted to the spontaneity of it, the dangerousness of it. Whereas the active-minded person doesn't want, danger coming into the home. They want to leave the home and go into the outer world and have this encounter. So this is what immigration in general provides. For the passive-minded people, immigration is something that comes into the world. And like a vampire, like a werewolf, like a billionaire, like whatever the Peter Pan, whoever, but it's something different. It's something foreign. It's something exciting. It's something, and to go back to the Myers-Briggs, this is appealing to the perceiving. The options are open. The deadlines are flexible. It's improvised. Make things up as you go. Spontaneous, surprising, new. There's a creativity there. There's a fertility there. There's a vitality there. So you want it to come into your country. You want all these new people to come in. And yes, there's going to be conflict. Yeah, there are going to be problems, but it's better than the alternative, which is we sit at home and know, or what is the traditional European example? Not Goldilocks. I'm thinking of Rapunzel. Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair. So Rapunzel has been waiting in her tall tower of European insane asylum with her padded walls and her political correctness, and everything's been the same, and we've defeated the Soviet Union, all the dragons are dead, and she's been stuck up in her little castle, in her little monastery. She's so chaste, she's like a nun, everything's boring, that her hair has grown to the length of a rope. It's as long as the castle at this point, because she's just been sitting around. Her hair has not been cut, it has not been shorn in so long. She is waiting. She is stagnant. She is bored. And then some knight comes on the ship from an outer land. He's this chivalrous knight. It's this courtly love. He's not a prince. He's not a king. He's a knight. He's a mercenary. He's a warrior. He's violent. And what does she do? She opens her gates. She lets down her hair. She opens her legs. She says, come on in, because anything is better than just living up here and forever and dying and not reproducing. And she sees this opportunity. If she's been kept chaste all her life, and now here's this wild, rugged, knightly adventure, he's going to come and he is going to enter into her life, and he is going to provide her children with this assertive energy, this active energy. Whereas for the knight, the dream of the knight, the fantasy of little boys is not to, I want to save Rapunzel. I mean, maybe that's what Mario is about, saving Princess Peach. But there's a funny thing about that. Mario saving Princess Peach. When you were a little kid, did anyone play Mario? Raise your hand if you used to play Mario. Put a little what's the What's the letter for Ray? Put a little up sign. Put a little T. T is like an upward gesture. Make a little upside. Raise your hand if you played Mario as a kid. And what was your telos? What were you thinking about doing? What were you trying to do when you play Mario? You're not trying to save Peach. You don't care about Peach. You are trying to defeat Bowser. You're trying to kill Bowser. You're trying to beat the boss. You're trying to explore new lands. You're trying to get better jumping, better timing, better speed, better skills, destroy your enemies, fight Bowser. And then every time, oh, Peach is in another castle. Peach is just an excuse for you to go out there. Peach doesn't matter. What you really want to do is slay the dragon, who is Bowser. Really, you want to slay Tiamat. You want to slay, and I gotta learn the Beowulf saga. Grendel. Is he fighting Grendel? There's this monster called Grendel. Grendel doesn't look like a dragon to me. Grendel is very terrible to look upon. Grendel's mother and the dragon. So there is a dragon in Beowulf. The third monster he encounters after killing Grendel and Grendel's mother. A slave awakens and angers a dragon by stealing a jeweled cup from its lair. Yeah, Tolkien totally ripped this off. But anyway, yeah, you have a dragon. It would be interesting to see like some medieval depictions of what they thought dragons looked like, what Grendel looked like, and Grendel's mother. So this is cool. It's all very cool. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I guess technically there's probably some ladies in the story of Beowulf. There's probably some cute ladies. I'm sure you could find them. I'm sure there's some aspect. I'm sure it's mentioned at some point, like, oh yeah, and then he got married, and then there was a wife or whatever. But guys, that's not really what drives them at the end of the day. That's not what drives this active energy. And I guess I shouldn't even say guys or men, because there are a lot of men who are passive and who don't fit what I'm talking about. There are a lot of men who their goal in life is to seek approval from women in one way or another, by calling themselves a feminist, by dressing themselves down, by making themselves passive, by becoming transgender. Possibly that might be one motivation. People might have other motivations. I don't know. I'm ignorant on the topic, but I think it's just better to talk active and passive, right? So the active person is not so much trying to have an encounter with the familiar or with the passive. The active person is looking to fight other active people. The active person is looking for an encounter with the active. So just as for the passive person, immigration represents the intrusion of the spontaneous into a hyper-ordered world of boredom, for the active person, immigration represents a legitimate threat, a strong horse, a dragon, or something to go out and slay. So for both the passive and the active mentality, immigration serves a fundamental purpose in terms of teleological, moral thinking, a motivation in order for us to have a will to life. The passive person lives on in the hope the immigrant will come in and change the culture and make it a dynamic culture and not something that's dead, as Spangler said. Not just Nietzsche. Nietzsche said God is dead, but Spangler said the West is dead. So implicitly, we don't want to just be dead. We don't want to just die. We want something to change. We want to somehow escape the death that we're in. And so the passive person wants the immigrants to come in. The active person sees the enemy at the gates, an enemy to fight, and that's where they focus their energy. And this provides a motivating factor for people to live on, because if there is no hope of the other, let us say, for the passive person, if there's no hope that the knight or the vampire, the werewolf or the prince or whoever, there's no hope that someone comes into your life to save you or to change things or to introduce spontaneity, there's no reason to live, right? You're waiting for someone to come and shake things up. Whereas for the active person, if there are no enemies to fight, well, then what's the point of living? So basically, immigration provides life force to the West. It doesn't have to be immigration, though. It could be artificial intelligence. It could be genetic editing. The problem with that, though, from a high-low versus middle perspective, is that we know how immigrants act. Like, we know, we have a lot of sociological data on how people from other countries act. You know, wherever they're coming from, if they're coming from Peru, if they're coming from Thailand, like, we know how they act. It's pretty predictable, the way that they act. And it's not really threatening to the powers that be. Whereas gene editing, which I think is going on in the background in the same way MK Ultra was happening under a closed system in the background. I think it is happening, but I think the reason it's not happening publicly, the reason why we're not having a public confrontation with the otherness of gene editing, which could serve the same function as immigration, but have completely different, effects in society. The reason we're not doing that is because if that technology escapes the hands of elites and is distributed among the population, it's going to threaten their power. And so they don't want to release that. So that's some of the stuff we talked about. We talked about Myers-Briggs. We talked about some stuff there. So let's bring it back. Hopefully the people, hopefully this is actually a video, instead of being a total frozen thing like it was last time. Okay, well, I want to just see the chat. Is there an option to pop out the? Yes, pop out the chat. Thank you, YouTube, Google Corporation. You're beautiful. I love you. Okay, we're going to try to do that. And I guess this is a short thing because technically I've just been talking to myself for a while now, like an hour and a half. Old stream is still frozen. Finally, voice twin. Someone else in the chat was promoting this. I tried catching up with your videos. What happened? Yeah, I mean, YouTube has just been making some changes. And so basically, here are the conditions in which I bring back old videos. Because I don't want to bring back old videos. I don't view it as here are the two forces. Let me blow this out. Let me give you a meta perspective. So I want to be dynamic. I want to change. I want to be exciting. I want to be the other, right? I want to be the immigrant. So in order to do that, I can't worship and codify my old content and just keep recursively going through the same thing. It's boring. I can't do that. I have to move beyond. I have to keep going. So it's like, let the dead bury the dead, as Christ said. We're going to forget about that. We're going to keep moving. We're going to keep exploring. And if this is boring, we're just going to have to keep moving. If this sucks, if this stream sucks, you tell me. We're just going to have to keep changing. But I don't want to. I don't want to be in a position where people are like, I don't want to watch your stream. I want to watch your old content. Your old content was better. I mean, maybe that's even objectively true in some way for a variety of reasons. But even if it is true, and let's Zumbazani some of these things. That is a technical term. That is a technical term referring to a very technical procedure having to do with the computer here. I need to Zumbazani some of these things. Okay, everything has been Zumbazoned. So, not quite, just a little more Zumbazoning. Okay, Zumbazoning is complete. So I want to be dynamic. What does this mean? It means new content. It means changing things up, mixing things up. So if people want the old videos, I will do a compromise with you. I've said it before, I'll compromise. I'm not going to hide everything from the world, but I want to create attention. I want to create a little competition. I want to create a little dynamism. Let's play a game. If you like my content so much, if you think it's so great, let's cooperatively, because I don't do much self-promotion. I don't really go on many other channels. I do it occasionally in a limited capacity with a few people who I think are not the worst. And so I'll do that. But if people want to get me to the point where, I could do something like, I don't really want to do Patreon. I don't like the concept. I don't like the concept of every time I make a video, you have to pay. That doesn't really make sense to me. I like the idea, and I guess there are certain, alternative payment processors that we could set up in a way, and we could think about that. But in just in general, more than just making money, because that's not the point. The point is to have a dynamic audience to complement my thirst for dynamism. So really, it's about the audience. Really, it's more about the audience than it is about the cash money. I mean, I could have a lot of money and stupid ideas that don't go anywhere. So all of this is to say, if we can get to 1,000 subscribers, I want to reward people. I want to create a game, a dynamic where, if someone sends in, because I would need 1,000 for the super chats. If someone sends in $10 for a super chat, they get to choose. Say, hey, remember that video where you talked about this? Can you throw that up on BitChute for me for $10? That seems like a good compromise, right? Because I don't want it to be this thing where I throw up my archive that nobody wants to see, nobody wants to watch. People say they do, but are you willing to pay $10 for one of the archive videos? If so, if that's the way it is, I'll leave that. I don't want to be too strict here, because that itself can be another kind of stultification. So it's a little bit dynamic. If we can get to 1,000 and people want to pay $10 for an old video, or they don't remember, and I'll throw a random video out there, we can figure something out. But that's the germ of the idea I have in my head. If people want to keep complaining about the lack of old videos, it's possible we can bring old videos back, but it has to be done in a fun way, because I don't know, I see the ways in which it can be not very fun. And it's just going to be like, because of course my ideas have evolved over time and my presentation has evolved. It's going to continue to evolve. I continue to play and go back and forth with different things. So to just put that all out there, I see the ways in which people can be defined by old ideas. I see videos I disagree with now that people want, that they say, oh, that was actually a really good video, bring that back. And I'm like, no, I was making bad arguments. Okay, so let's see. In chat, you can access a channel by clicking on the 3 dots that appear when you hover the fourth density. You are such a lad. Bro, my brother, my 4th D. I don't know how that sounds. Where do I pick this up? I have too many windows. How do I do this? Do I press F4? No. Do I press F3? Oh, there we go. Let's do a good old F3. No, we don't need to do F3. All right, I just want to get here, and then we're going to go there, and then zoom that down. Okay, here's the question. Here's the confusion. Go to channel. I hit go to channel, and then what happens? And then we have some stuff going on. Okay, there we go. That's all I wanted to do. Where are we at? Where are we at in the chat? Let's put that down there for the moment. You're not frozen anymore, but now is bedtime. Has to do with the Madonna complex. Interesting. How do we connect the Madonna complex? The repression that want to express themselves are too ashamed, so they have to make some kind of icon that will allow themselves to experience it without judging themselves. Immigration is a way for housewives to spice things up. Yeah, that's one way of saying it. We've got a hand raised. Thank you for raising the hand. Yeah, people played Mario. Yeah, people used to play Mario, and they were squishing those Goombas and dumping Bowser in the lava. Yeah, that's what they were doing. It was about the adventure. Can't read that. It was about the adventure and confrontation of the Koopa people. Yeah, that's what it was about. I was gene edited. I can confirm. Denounce the John Cochrane theory. Very sad. I like all of it. I just want to catch up because I couldn't stop to watch them for a while. Yeah, I mean, me taking the time to re-upload all of the videos to BitChute is not something I really look forward to, because as I do it, as I'm like, Okay, which video should be first? What's most important? What's the video that's like the most valuable here that I actually care about? So I look at it and I'm like, okay, maybe it's this one. And I'm downloading it and I'm looking through it and I'm like, this is not that good. And then I'm uploading it and I'm like, who cares? If this was important, then I would just be able to recite it like Greek poetry. Like you'd be like, you remember that video made about this topic? And I'd be like, yeah, let me restate that video in even a better way, a better presentation. That would be awesome. That is the goal. That is the goal. Yuval Harari's Sapiens. I don't have that. Advertise. Yeah, I don't like to advertise on 4chan. I don't like 4chan. It is a platform of pornography. It is a platform in more ways than one. I don't just mean that in a bodily. I don't just mean that about objectifying the bodies of human beings, but it's about shock value. It's about whatever is. It is sensory. It is stimulating. It is exciting. It is dramatic. So I don't really want to draw from that audience because your audience creates you. The ecology you live in, it creates you. We are a product of our audience. So think about that statement. And I might be back. We might have some more time here. Ask some questions in the chat. We might think of some more tangents to go on. Let's see here. Where have we got? Sell USBs, yeah. Yeah, we could do that. Platform of sock puppets, Coomers, yeah. That is what it's about. I would really, ideally, I would like to have an audience. I'd rather have an audience of I prefer, if I'm going to be streaming or talking to people, I can talk for 2, 3, 4 hours if I'm talking to someone and I can hear that person's voice or see that person's face. That's a more of a motivating factor for me than 1,000 4chaners who are just, you know, making inane comments and posting memes and things like that. So ultimately, I would rather have a more high quality audience giving more high quality feedback than just millions of people who are just kind of just saying a bunch of nonsense just for shock value. If the desire to fight immigration is a desire for anchoredness, security, and boring perfection, does that belong to the passive or active personality? Seems too limited of a distraction. If the desire to fight immigration is a desire for anchoredness, security, no, that's not what I'm arguing. I'm arguing for the fact that fighting immigration is going out into the world and fighting against dragons and fighting against foreign things and strange things. And it's a kind of a xenophobia. But that is an ancient quest for the encounter with the foreign. It's not actually a desire for anchoredness and security. If you just wanted to be anchored and secure, you would say nothing, shut up, and just live your life. Because fighting against immigration is a dangerous thing. But if you like to be active and if you like to have an encounter with the lost world, then you're gonna see that as something that is a telos for you to move about. Yeah, so I mean, I guess you have some people who talk about, you know, we have to protect our bourgeois values from, you know, I guess there are people who mess up my argument because they make such boring arguments about immigration. Like, actually, the arguments about GDP and like they make it something economic or whatever. There are ways that people make it very boring, I think, to dilute it. But I think on a basic psychological, mythological, like Jungian archetypes, personalities, Myers-Briggs, I think people fight immigration because they want to fight because they're warriors, not because they want safety and security. And I think people invite in immigrants because they're bored. They are bored of being stuck in the insane asylum known as Western civilization. Alternatively, you can think of Western civilization as a coffin. We're being buried alive, and we want someone violent to come tear us out of this coffin and bring us back so we can breathe the breath of life. Did you ever figure out if the moon is masculine or feminine? The moon is definitely masculine. The moon definitely has a sinister masculine energy, whereas the sun is certainly exoteric and just out there and la la la. It's a sunny day. It's a beautiful sunny day. The sun is overbearing. You know, when the sun is an aspect of control. When the sun, you have too much sunlight, everything dries up and gets hot. Whereas the moon, is there such a thing as too much lunar energy? Can the moon ever be too big? I don't think it's possible, you know? So there's something masculine about the moon. Yeah, sell it. We already read that, but I'll read it again. Sell USB drives with your old videos on. Yeah, well, if people don't send me your address, just no. Although I'd say that the people who think they desire perfection would soon realize it's not actually what they wanted. They actually want some strife in their lives. Yeah, my point exactly. Black pill is true. The No Kenneth stream. This is avant-garde. Yeah, let's check back in with the. Yeah, I'm still alive, still here. Let's trying to figure out a good way to do this. I want to be able to view myself, you know, just a little bit. We'll have just a slice of hair in there. Okay, zooming. What podcast or YouTuber would you recommend? Arvel just did a good video. Just watched that. It was like a 40-minute video, pretty good, on the progression of humanity through perhaps a pre-schizophrenic age, which he alludes to. He doesn't really go into that, but he alludes to it. There's a schizophrenic stage of analogical thinking and divination, whereby we appeal to the super sovereignty of the tea leaves or the guts or the bones or whatever sacred objects we're using in order to divine the future. That is an appeal to a super sovereignty away from the sovereignty of the individual making the decision by logical argumentation. And there is this kind of he argues that whereas in a small group, you can use direct proto-linguistic communication that is non-memetic communication. You can say, go get food, or do this or do that. When you have a small tribe of people, you can have a chieftain who directs people by his voice constantly. But when you have a large urban settlement, the chieftain can't be everywhere at all times. So how does he project his authority? Arvil suggests that this is done essentially by training people or breeding people to become schizophrenic, which, yeah, I mean, he says that's a little bit far-fetched. That's a little bit, hard to prove. Like, what evidence do we have for that? Of course, referencing things like MK Ultra, mental conditioning, our ability to change. You look at people who are brought up by wolves, children who don't have the ability to learn language. So the human mind is very plastic. And genes are a little more plastic than we think. Epigenetics, as well as just, mate selection, is pretty influential on behavior. So, yeah, he goes through that, and then he says, like, now we're sort of entering into a post-schizophrenic age, and maybe we have to reconnect with some of that a little bit to move forward, because, as Spangler noted, we seem to have both Spangler and Nietzsche seem to have hit upon this idea that European civilization was in a slump, and there has to be some way of getting out of this. Immigration is one of the ways that we could get out of it. But is that a real solution, or is that a superficial solution? Is that a Band-Aid, or is that actually going to address things on a deeper level? That's the question. 12 Disciples is perfect. Yeah. People that own Ring doorbells are dumb. How is that brought up? I like Ring doorbells. I like when you hit because I hate knocking. Knocking feels so aggressive, like I'm barging in, I'm trying to break down your door. I hate it. So, yeah, maybe this is my feminine spirit speaking, the Chad knocker versus the virgin ring the doorbell. I mean, just in terms of the auditory nature, like the bass, the bass, you're hitting the door, you're thumping at the door, you're pounding, you're masculine, your punches, you're ready to just explode. Whereas the feminine, like, you hit a little doorbell, you like press the little white button, and it's like da 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 da. It's ringing, and it's a tenor voice. So yeah, I've always liked doorbells, and I've always hated knocking. I guess that is my transgender energy, my gender fluid energy here. What do you think of me being determined to keeping this terrible username until I turn myself around? Well, that's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, dude. I think, what is the term? Fake it till you make it. I think you should. I mean, this is my advice to you. It's not necessarily something I do, but I would suggest you try, if you haven't tried before, represent yourself as the person you want to be. Don't say, oh man, I wish I was, let's say you want to be a Christian. Maybe you hate Christianity. I don't know. But let's say you want to be a Christian. And you're like, man, I wish I could be a Christian. But I'm gonna put a big tattoo on my forehead that says Satanist, and I'm not gonna get it removed until I finally finish the Bible and become a Christian. That seems to be the kind of argument you're making, versus just being like, yeah, today is the first day of me being a Christian, and I'm starting from nothing, and I'm going to have to work really hard to be a good Christian and to actually be a moral person, but I'm going to work hard at that. So by naming yourself, if you call yourself Mud, if you say, I am Mud and I will not change my name until I am worthy of a better name, maybe that kind of negative reinforcement works for some people. Different people are motivated by different things. But if you call yourself Hero, if you call yourself Beowulf, or whatever you think is heroic, if you call yourself Leonidas, or you call yourself Achilles, you call yourself Apollo, I don't know, you call yourself something cool, then you say, I'm Zeus, and I'm starting very low. I'm not really living up to that name, but that's my goal. It's kind of like wearing a cross, like it's a constant reminder of the good. I think you need both a constant reminder of the good and the bad in order to move yourself through moral space. I think you can't just exclude the evil from your perception, and I also don't think you can exclude the good. So you have to be able to see both. You have to see the man hanging in the gallows. You have to see Christ on the cross. You have to eat the body and the blood. You have to engage in ritualistic reminders of evil. However you define that, it could be like you want to constantly remind yourself of that, and then also remind yourself of what you're striving for in a positive sense. If you are too puritanical and just trying to have, pure white walls and only good things and only happy songs, only positivity, then in moral terms, you might be impotent in a way. And you might end up, children who are born in that environment often rebel because I think we have a natural want for demonology. We want to summon forth Lucifer so we can beat him up. We want the Goetia. We want to have encounters with demons. We want to go in the forest, in the woods, and struggle with spirits. So the idea of having just a pure, serene Elysian field surrounding you at all time, wheat fields and positivity, that can lead to great evil, in fact, because it leads to a disorientation and people fall into pure, like a reactionary turn toward evil. Whereas, of course, if all you have is evil surrounding you, then you just become your ecology. You fit into that ecology, you become evil yourself. So I think it's important to have the right balance in your head. And if you identify yourself of, I'm a bad person, and then is that going to motivate you to change? Or is it going to make you feel depressed? And you're like, well, I've lived, however old you are, let's say you're a young person. Let's say you're 18. Let's say you've lived for 18 years and you look back at your short life and you say, I'm a loser. I did this wrong. I have these regrets. And I'm going to call myself mud as a result to kind of kick myself in the ass and try to motivate myself to change. Is that actually going to work? Or are you just going to wake up and not want to get out of bed and say, yeah, I'm a loser. I'm never going to change. I've always been this way. Maybe it was my genetics. Maybe it was my environment, but I'm just stuck and there's no way out. Maybe call yourself something different. That would be my little rant on that. Ken, have you watched many near-death experience videos? No. I find them to be a good place to start to get typical people interested, open to a non-materialist worldview. No, because I was always following like atheists like Daniel Dennett and people who would directly respond to that and say, you're just having hallucinations. Your brain is deprived of oxygen or you're going into a coma or you're whatever, and or you have a concussion or whatever. There's some kind of weird things going on with the wiring and you're engaging with a form of imaginative schizophrenia. You hear God, you see the light, and it's all fake and false. And that never appealed to me as an argument. So I don't spend much time on that. I don't think it's very convincing. If it convinces other people, then, again, I don't take much stock in that as a powerful argument because I think the counter arguments are just pretty clear, and they just seem more intuitive to me than the argument that like, oh, well, I saw angels and therefore that proves angels are real. Like, I don't have that kind of experiential trust of if you hear something, if you see something, that means it's real. For some people, they are like, yeah, I saw God. That's my proof. And I'm not hating. I don't go around like debunking Christians, debunking near-death experiences. This is so stupid. But it's just not my thing. I don't like 4chan either. Was a joke. Ha ha. Ha ha ha. Dennis, do you think reading and literacy are coming to an end, but so much of our culture comes from literature? Our relationship is definitely changing. I, in my personal life, have become less literate. I was such a big reader. Now I barely read at all in terms of actual books, like text of the book, like smelling the book, reading a book all night, falling asleep with a book on your face and waking up and the book's right there and you can pick back up with the book. Oh, such good memories, right? So the relationship to reading and literacy are changing. Ultimately, reading and literacy, what does that even mean? We could say DNA is a kind of a book. We could say it's a kind of poetry or with literature or something. There's meaning in the DNA. So it never comes to an end, right? There's always literacy is an expression of something which is as old as life itself. So I don't think literacy ever comes to an end. But I think the way that we relate to it, is it as a gene? Is it as a meme? Is it as a book? Is it as a Bible? Is it through religion? Is it in a secular sense? Obviously, that is changing. And that will continue to change as technology in a McLuhanite sense. Marshall McLuhan is just he's just got such a simple idea. I wish they taught you some of these people in school, in public school. Of course they wouldn't, because they want people to be confused. But it would be nice to see a little more of Marshall McLuhan. And he's just got this very simple message. The medium is the message. And, most of the reading, it's not that we become illiterate. Technically, we can still read words, but the words that we're reading are tweets or articles or messages, text messages. So it's very different from reading a book, and that's going to produce certain psychological changes. Our capacity to sit down and go through a canon, the canon of Western literature, is more and more inhibited. And in a sense, there's a problem where it's like, some people tell me they're like, or I sometimes see comments that are like, I'm going to force my kids to read the Iliad. I'm going to force my kids to read all this ancient Greek stuff. I'm going to read them the Iliad every night. And, I hear that in like the homeschooling and separating your kids from society. But this goes back to what I was saying about immigration. If you totally cut your kids off from the world and sterilize their environment, make it pure and good and happy, and they never have an example of the bad, a direct confrontation with the other, well, at some point, if they ever do escape your grasp, escape your reaches, then they might rebel against everything you've taught them. I mean, I've just seen it in my personal life a lot of times, where people they grow up in a very enclosed space of goodness and chastity and Christianity. And then at some point they are unleashed upon the world and they reverse everything. And, I guess it doesn't always work out that way. And I would like to see some actual like quantitative studies that put this idea to the test. It would be a little bit difficult to do. Maybe I'd like to see studies on kids who are homeschooled. How do they turn out, versus kids who go through public schooling. And everyone's got to be different. And you have to understand yourself and your partner as well. Like, what is your psychological orientation? Are you a confrontational person, or are you an authoritarian person? Are you someone who is a contrarian? You disagree with authority on instinct, or do you agree with authority on instinct? So understand where you're actually at. And then that'll help, I think, people understand what the right decision to make for their kids is. I can certainly see the arguments either way, but I would hesitate because I'm very contrarian. And so if I had kids and I was bringing them up in homeschool and I was only teaching them good things, then I would expect them to rebel against those good things. Whereas if I put them in public school and I allow them to see the other, then I would expect that they would react against the other, right? But maybe it's not that simple. Maybe it doesn't work in a reactive way. And some people, really, it is true. Some people, and I think there is maybe let's say, again, passive and active psychologies. People who are passive, I look at people who are passive and they just do everything their parents told them from the moment they're born to the day they die. They always, my daddy always told me, my daddy always said. And they follow that to the day they died, and bless their heart. Those people have a place in this world. But then you also have people who hate their parents, do the opposite of whatever their parents tell them. And, so I think there are different psychological types. They tend to have a common element of life. So Jocko's talking about the near-death experience, a life review, take-home message of selflessness and love being primary. God himself is the source of love. Yeah, I mean, again, there's like a Daniel Dennett analysis of this, an atheist analysis that looks through these like moral propositions and relates them to the experience of almost dying and things of that nature. Like, you're literally confronting the expulsion of your own personality from the universe. So the idea that you would then become more friendly to the concept of selflessness and love and God and things like that makes sense, because you're actually having to confront your own mortality. When we confront our own mortality, selfishness and sensuousness and hedonism doesn't make sense. It's arbitrary. It's like, well, why bother? Why should I bother waking up and getting drunk and partying and making money and going on cruises and meeting girls? What's the point of all that if I'm just going to die? I can't take that treasure with me. Whereas if I'm selfless and I'm good and I love God and God loves me and I have a spirit, I have a soul, I read the Bible, it gives hope for something beyond. So it seems to me that people who almost die and have a recognition of that fact, that's going to have a moral impact on their lives, which is why I think it's important that we have Christ on the cross, we have gallows in the public square, that we have death that is present, that we can see and smell and hear and feel, that when people die, you have an open casket funeral, you get to see dead bodies. How many people, raise your hand in the chat, you've never seen a dead body before? That is disturbing to me. That is disturbing. Our fear of death, I think, is one of the biggest problems in our culture, that we cannot stomach the sight of dead people. That, to me, there's a moral problem, both causally and effectively, like in both ends of causation. The reason why we're afraid of death is because we are not living morally. And the reason we're not morally is because we don't have a fear of death. So bringing back a fear of death, I think, people fear death, but bringing back the presence of death, the imminence of death, rather than making it a distant fear, make it something close. And you see this in cultures which are vital. We want Odysseus to come back and kill all the suitors. Yeah, we do want we want some miracle. Heidegger wants a God to come back. I believe some degree of order can be kept while there's strife still going around. Some people now point to how we are concerned with diversity, but the West still had serious issues before that. Okay, let's scroll up. That is a point being made. The iron lung. Okay, moonburn. Yeah, I've never gotten a moonburn before, but I have certainly, the moon, lunar energy. There's something masculine there. Embracing immigration is willingly getting penetrated. Resisting immigration is forcefully getting penetrated. Well, okay. I mean, you can say that. I don't think it discounts what I was saying before. When is the next episode? I don't know. You ask him. He hasn't told me. Maybe I've been kicked off the podcast. You never know. You never know, because I did a video with a guy, and then one day, without any warning, any discussion, it's off the channel. Did I say something wrong? Did I do something wrong? Was it, did he like it one day and say that he liked it and said it was a good thing, and then the next day it's like changed his mind, or what's going on behind the scenes? I have no clue. I do not. I'm not on the inside. Let's say I'm an outsider. And a lot of people don't like what I have to say and what I have to contribute. Not because maybe they disagree, but they think my takes just aren't that good. They're not that hot. They're not very spicy. And they're looking for these spicy takes. And maybe I'm too bland. Maybe I'm too much, corn, meat, and potatoes for them. And that's fine. Everyone can have their own opinions. And I'm going to try to orient myself appropriately and take criticism where it's productive and see where we can go with that. But I have absolutely no clue. I think it's called How to Build a Universe That Won't Collapse in 3 Days, Arvel Online, last I checked. So what do you mean, how to build? What is this? Is this a book that I should read? What does it mean? How to build a universe that doesn't fall apart 2 days later. Philip K. Dick. 1978. Scientists say mice cannot be made to look like human beings. It's a federally funded research program. Just think, someone in the world is an authority on the topic. I guess this is about literature. Because Philip K. Dick, isn't he an author? My son Christopher read. So maybe this is about the Gospel of John. There's a lot here. I don't think we're just going to read this. I think this would be something for you to read. But Philip K. Dick, isn't he a fiction author? I heard of the dude. Kindred Dick. Okay, early life. He had a twin sister, a phantom twin. Apparently, his twin died 6 weeks after birth. That's interesting. He was educated in Quaker schools. He was an acosmic panentheist. Very edgy. He read the works of Plato. He writes science fiction. When is he writing this? 1956. So this guy's pretty old, right? He died sometime in the late 70s. Wrote a letter to the FBI accusing members of the University of California of being foreign agents of the Soviet Union. Interesting. He felt he had been taken over by the spirit of Elijah. Yeah, I've heard about this guy. Reference the Philip K. Dick. What's he most famous for? Total Recall? Blade Runner? He wrote Blade Runner? No way. That is amazing. I am amazed, Philip K. Dick. You are an amazing man with an amazing legacy. I am impressed. All right. Well, I knew Philip K. Dick was going to be important. I didn't realize he was that important. How's your Thales coming along? It's not. It's not coming along. But maybe someday it will. Hate knockers. Yeah, well, that's the way it is. I'm talking about the video doorbells that you record you and your neighbors. Oh, what are you talking about? Surveillance? I totally interpreted a different message, Michael. You see, my tangents, they're self-generating. I'm just responding to comments that aren't even being made. Talking about the video doorbells. So you hate, yeah, being recorded. Yeah, well, I mean, it's a thing. It's stuff. It's going on. Good impression of me. I saw God. That's my proof. Yeah, that's a thing. I've never had a vision where it's like I can see God or I can see angels. I have had experiences where I would be in the dark at night as a child, and I would imagine either seeing or thinking about, not even necessarily seeing shadows or beings or creatures in the darkness, but I would imagine, like, what if I did? And it's sort of a confusing thing. And I guess that was kind of exciting. It was like, what if there are creatures here? It was kind of like a horror movie. It's like an exciting kind of a fear. So yeah, as far as experiences with otherworldly beings, what else can I say? I guess I've had a lot of lucid dreams, which have never been about. I've never had a dream about God. I've never had a dream where God spoke to me. I've had a lot of lucid dreams. I've had a lot of conversations in my dreams with a lot of different people, all real people or animals or beasts or creatures, but never God, never Jesus, never the Lord. So never had that kind of experience. I guess some of the, I guess I would say for me, it's not with regard to like monotheism and Christianity specifically. It seems to be sort of excluded from some like dream narratives. But at the same time, I think like the Bible itself, like some of the things like the story of Job or the story of Solomon, like I guess I have a much more abstract view of it. I don't know. I mean, I guess they say that people will perceive in their imagination, they will generate those things that are most familiar to them. So like the Egyptians, when they dream of Anubis, and the Greeks dream of Zeus and so on. So I guess for whatever reason, it was not I don't know. That would also be an interesting thing to see quantitative studies on what do people dream about. Do people dream about friends, family, God, animals? Like what appears in people's dreams? Is it a popular thing for people to dream about God and to hear God talking to them? It seems to be a bit taboo in a way. It seems like if I have a dream where I tell you I was like talking to a dog, or I was talking to a person, or I was talking to a person who changed into a dog, or I was a dog and then I changed into a person or whatever. So that's like, oh, yeah, what a silly dream. You're having silly dreams. You're just a normal person to just have all sorts of weird things going on in your dreams. That's normal dreaming. But if you say, I had a dream, the Lord spoke to me and God spoke to me, all of a sudden that becomes kind of dangerous because you're invoking super sovereign powers rather than this arbitrary, hyper modern, individualistic, video game that you're simulating in your brain. So, yeah, I haven't had that kind of encounter. Ba, ba, ba. Pretty cool advice. You are welcome. McLuhan had an extra artery pumping blood into his brain. If that's true, that would be cool. Let's do a fact check. Fun fact: McLuhan. A later procedure revealed that McLuhan had an extra artery pumping blood into his cranium. He had a tumor the size of an apple from the base of his brain a few months after he had a debate in 1967. That is awesome. The medium is McLuhan. That's beautiful. Yeah, McLuhan is awesome. I haven't watched a lot of him speaking. I just hear him referred to, and like the more I just medium is the message. Yeah, like you just repeat that 1,000 times, like you're in the grocery store and you're like, the medium is the message. You pick up an apple, you're like, hey, the medium is the message. Put that in the bag. It's like a mantra. It's like a Buddhist mantra. And it just seems to, every time you say it, it seems to be more powerful. So, yeah, McLuhan we should all be forced. We should all be forced into like collective. We should get we should rent like a little hotel and get a projector and like have a projector of like McLuhan having a debate in 1967. We should all watch that. That would be cool. The rise in audiobooks have me consuming more books than ever. 2 times speed and LibriVox are godsends. Yeah, I've heard of that. I guess I listen to YouTube videos, which is like reading. Listening to a YouTube video is like listening to an audiobook, which doesn't have a book form. Although YouTube does transcribe the audio. But I listen to a lot of YouTube videos. I've been listening to YouTube videos, I would say since 2008, 9, 10 is when I started probably making the crossover to listening more to more YouTube videos than reading books. So yeah, I do a lot of that, but I don't like, oh, here's a book I'd like to read. So instead of reading it, I'll get the audiobook version. No, it's like I'll listen to a lecture about the book. So I like listening to oratory that is designed to be spoken, because oftentimes books are not written in order that they may be spoken. They're written in a style to be most readable, and those are two different styles. So yeah, I don't listen to a lot of audiobooks, but I mean, technically you could say every YouTube video is in a sense an audiobook. So maybe I do listen to a lot of audiobooks. I don't know. I'm very like I've had people telling me for a long time, like, oh, dude, you need to like listen to more audiobooks. And I'm like, nah, I'm good. I got my stuff. But at some point I'm going to realize, you always realize when it's too late. You're like, man, I wasted all this time on YouTube videos when I could have been listening to audiobooks and becoming a genius. So there is always that factor there. McLuhan's message was TV because that was his medium. Ooh. And now it's outdated. Ooh. And so he is irrelevant as TV is irrelevant unless the words themselves and not the medium were his message. Yeah. Well, clearly we have to go beyond McLuhan. Like I'm not saying repeat the medium is the message. And like, here's the interesting point. I've never listened to McLuhan's arguments, and I've never watched McLuhan speak. So I don't worship the dead idol of McLuhan. Like, I'm not about recreating McLuhan's interviews and debates. I don't care about that. I care about this phrase, the medium is the message. In the same way, like, in the beginning was the word was God. I'm not someone who's constantly reading the Bible. Maybe I should be, maybe I'd be a better person. But I think it's interesting to take a phrase that has this kind of intergenerational power and to apply it to the present. So I'm not like worshiping the dead form of McLuhan, but I think medium is the message is like pretty cool. What medium do immigrants use to take over the West? Immigrants are not really taking over the West per se. They're entering into the West. There's maybe a distinction there. What medium do they use? There's a physical aspect. There's a entertainment aspect where they have representation in entertainment, in politics. So maybe politics is the medium. But I'm not saying that immigration is a message necessarily. I'm saying that it is an object in psychological cultural space by which we orient ourselves. Most people have never killed an animal either. Yeah, true. There are some people who maybe shouldn't be killing animals. Maybe there are some people who are of a priestly type and they're not supposed to be killing animals. But, people should at least have a confrontation. Like, if you eat meat, you shouldn't be like, oh, butchers are evil. It's like, if you eat meat, you have to accept the process by which you got the meat. So, I kind of have more respect for vegans who are like, I could never kill an animal. I don't want to eat animals. I sort of have more respect for that than the people who are like, oh my gosh, you killed a pig and then you like sliced open the pig and gutted the pig. And like, that is just disgusting. That is terrible. But then they're going to eat bacon. Like, that's the worst. Don't be that guy. Don't be that person. You have to accept the process by which you're accepting the final product. Like, the product is the process. The medium is the message. Like, these are good little aphorisms, right? Olaf has killed a frog with a golf club. Yeah, I don't like that. I respect frogs. Like, I don't like killing small animals. I'm not a big killer of animals either. I can't say I'm a hunter. I can't say I've gone out and done much of that. I killed 2 pet fish by overfeeding them. Repentance, too juicy, too oniony, a little more garlic for the people who want spicy takes. He was into schizophrenia and mysticism and stuff. Just mentioned while you talked about Arvel's stream. Who is into schizophrenia? Julian James? Who are we talking about here? I put a whole head of garlic into the casserole I just made. It was delicious. Yeah, garlic, when you cook it, is very delicious. Although there does cause some gastrointestinal problems when you cook garlic. It does cause some gas, but it is delicious. But apparently the best health benefits from vegetables or garlic or onion or anything is when it's raw. You got to eat it raw to get the pure juice, the pure whatever it is. I don't know, the spirit of the thing. You have to have it raw. That's what I hear, at least. I put a whole, we already read that. Minority Report, A Scanner Darkly. Oh yeah, we're talking about Philip K. Dick. Oh, Philip K. Dick. Are you saying that Philip K. Dick was into mysticism? I don't know. You got to be very specific in these comments. Otherwise, I have no clue what's going on. I dream about places, always wandering around all kinds of interesting buildings and cities and landscapes. Wish I could record them. Yeah. Well, you can make a dream journal and then you can create art and films that are supposed to represent your dreams. I think that would be an interesting project. Yeah, I think dreams are great. I think dreams are awesome. So I can agree with that. Sociality precedes abstraction is the 2019 version of medium is the medium is the massage. I could really use a good medium right now. I could really use a good. Let me get my stick out. You want to see my stick? I never use this thing. I use it when I'm lying down. But technically, you're supposed to. Technically, you're supposed to be able to like get into those knots and stuff. And I've seen people do this before. Ah, man, that actually is good. Ooh, maybe I should just do this. Maybe I should just do this the whole stream, right? Sociality precedes abstraction. Medium is the message. Yeah, they're related. They're related. It's essentially saying that the process. Well, I just said, the process is the product. Sociality precedes abstraction. Medium is the message. So it's talking about the process by which you get something and saying that's important, not the product itself. Maybe not taking over, but displacing us. Let's see. I mean, look, obviously, when I talk about immigration, I'm talking about change. When I say immigration is happening, there's an implied change in there. And so change, displacement, that's happening. But on what level is it actually, like, in terms of how society is run? And especially when you look at the elite of society, when you look at a board of directors in Bolivia, and then the stockholders of a South African, diamond mining company, and then you look at the investors and who is actually investing in China, a foreign investment in China. And you look at the oligarchs in Russia, and you look at all these different rich elite people who are kind of processing and determining how things are going in a meta level. Of course, like a day-to-day life, like, yes, living in a nice little town in the Netherlands, or living in northern Norway, or living in different places is different. Yeah, living in one type of place with a certain culture, it's different for the average person who has to live on the ground and go to the store and experience. Sometimes there's crime and sometimes there's a language barrier. So yeah, it's obviously causes change. But for the people at the top, does their life really change very significantly? They're flying in helicopters, private jets, limos. They don't have to go to the grocery store. They don't have to deal with the downtown neighborhoods. Or they don't have to deal with these kinds of changes. Basically, for them, there's no change at all. All that happens is the GDP goes up, and there's maybe some kind of spiritual, like I'm saying, some kind of encounter with the other will to life, something going on there. Whereas something like DNA editing, artificial intelligence seems a little more volatile. Let's see. Let's grab a little checkout. So can people have private YouTube channels? Is that possible? What's going on here? Whenever I see new people on the channel, I always like to throw a little subscribe out there. I like to just see usually what I'll do is I'll subscribe to people, and then I'll unsubscribe when I realize I'm not really interested in seeing their videos clog up my feed. That is generally how it goes. So that's generally that is the general process. But oh my goodness, what is going on? Is there another? This is weird. I don't know what's happening. This is very strange. Sometimes you just see stuff that's happening out there, and it just this is my encounter with the other. This is my encounter. The internet is an encounter with the other. The internet is a form of immigration. I retweeted some guy who said something like, the past is a country we cannot visit, and the future is like a country that's coming to visit us, or something to this effect. And then I responded something like, what did I say? Immigration is a form of adventure. Let's check out the timeline. Let's see if we can pull up the timeline here. I got to scroll back. I have a bunch of political stuff on here that's not very. I should. I wish I could have two different timelines. I could be like, this is my timeline for all the cool stuff, and this is like all the political stuff. That doesn't really matter. I said immigration is necessary to get the quality of otherness. We've exhausted the world exterior. He said the future is a foreign country that travels to us. Yes, yes, indeed. It's all true stuff. Yeah, there's some good stuff in there. Process is the product. Yeah, I will be the new McLuhan. You know what? McLuhan, he's dead. He's gone. TV's over. We don't care. You know, YouTube is the new medium, and the new phrase, the new dogma, process is the product. I don't know if anyone ever said that before. Someone has to have said this. This is too. The phrase process, the product is the process, encapsulates the unique relationship between this blah, 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 Caribbean biopharma, chemically derived drugs, TED Talks. I'm basically giving a very lo-fi TED Talk right now. Isn't that the case? This is all like corporate speech. This is all very this is all like I'm looking at like different corporate slogans right now. Has anyone ever heard of Cactus Squid? Someone asked me a while back, they said, do you like any video games? And I said, I like Cactus Squid. I don't know if I said, but I should have said I like Cactus Squid. Cactus Squid is crazy. Cactus Squid has been around for a while. He joined Twitter 2009. He made Hotline Miami. Some of his older games are really interesting. I have no clue what's going on with this. But yeah, Cactus Squid, he made some very old games like back in 2008. Let's see if we can pull up. He used to have this website. I'm trying to pull up maybe some of his really, really old games. December 2008. Mondo. Oh, dude, the Mondo Madness games. Very low-fi, very low tech, very low graphics. But Cactus Squid, Swedish game developer, Marcus Pearson made Minecraft. I mean, there's just some cool stuff out there. There's just some cool, weird, interesting stuff that I've been following this guy for a while, and then he came out with Hotline Miami, and then Hotline Miami blew up and everyone liked it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a hipster. Yeah, I liked this guy before he was popular. I knew about him before he was popular. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Just oh, dude. Such a weird aesthetic he has going on there. You know, if you think, is this like a right-wing aesthetic, a left-wing aesthetic? He kind of invented like the I don't know how I say this, but you know when you see the Greek statue and you see like, but it's like purple and pink and stuff, like he invented that. He invented that sort of thing. No one gives him credit, but he was the pioneer of that aesthetic. I'm convinced of that. A dying pig sounds like a crying baby. It's truly bone-chilling to hear. I mean, I don't doubt it. I'm not saying that I kill pigs very often. I'm not saying everyone has to go out and kill pigs or you're like some immoral person. I'm just saying there's a mismatch. There's a problem here. If you have a problem with the process of killing pigs, if you're going to say like, I'm a weak, effeminate man and I don't have the ability to like suffer like the empathic experience of watching the pig die or whatever, if that is your opinion, then, or if that's how you perceive the world, that's how you interact with the world, that's who you are, you know, that's one thing. But then people who are like, oh, butchers are evil and it's like evil and wrong to kill pigs and you're still eating bacon. I mean, I guess there's levels of problematization that come into here. Like killing animals is a sadistic thing. I get why the priest class of India, the Brahmins, said we need to stop killing animals here because it is a sadistic action. But if you're going to eat meat, like you have to understand the sadism implicit there. And if you're going to divorce yourself from that, then there is a huge deal of hypocrisy there. Philip K. Dick was into Gnosticism. Okay. I put roasted garlic in my mashed potatoes. That is delicious. I love to cook. Mashed potatoes sound great. Wonder if I have any pork chops in the freezer. I'd love to brine them. Oh, yeah. Do some cooking. Where's your shake weight? Yeah, true. I got to get the shake. I don't actually have a shake weight. And I don't think this works. I don't think this makes my back feel better because I was doing some rear delt and just really, boy, it's more on the left side. I'm a very asymmetrical person. My genetics are terrible. I'm all out of whack, and I'm just discovering, like, this side is stronger than that side, and like my right obliques are stronger than my left obliques, and one leg is shorter than the other, and it's all messed up. But yeah, we're not gonna do too much of that. I have 2 of those and a neck one. I'm also a massage therapist. Very cool. You need a wrist twist thing. What is that thing? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I like to keep it simple. I wonder if I should try getting into the farmer life if I can. You know what, dude? I'm going to call you H9. Listen, Mr. H9. If you have not done that yet, you should try it. And here's what I'll say. You might be the person, you try the farming life, and you're doing the farming life, and you're like, wow, you're like, wow, I could be a farmer for the rest of my life. And you're like farming, you're like digging holes, you're like sowing seeds, you're doing the farming thing. And you're on the farm and you're like, I could marry a farmer girl. I could wake up every morning at 5 a.m. and I could go feed the animals and do the farming every day, every week, every year for another 50 years. I could have kids on the farm. We could farm, do the farming life. And maybe you fall in love with it. And maybe that's your true calling, what you're meant to do. And that's the solution to everything, man. But maybe you're going to realize that there's something outside of the farming life. Maybe you're going to realize that you are meant to confront evil in the world, and that the farming life is really, you're hiding from the world, and that's not your true purpose. So, but I would say, I think everyone should try the farming life if you're capable. Like, if you're physically capable, go on a farm, start doing some farm work, do some heavy manual labor, work from sun up to sundown, like get to the soil, like at least have a contact with that, because it's this ancestral, archaic part of ourselves, this vestigial part of ourselves that now robots have taken over the farms, no longer matters anymore. But I think get in touch with it. If you've never done it before, if you have no clue, if you're a city boy and you have no clue what it's about, I'd say get out there, get dirty, do it for however long you need to, a week, a month, a year, a few years, I don't know. But oftentimes subjecting yourself to change. Like, I think there are a lot of people who are online, they don't go outside, they don't experience nature, and it becomes a kind of a prison psychologically, and they can't fix the problems that they have because they're so stuck into their habits and their rituals, which are unhealthy. And they're like, I don't know how to get self-control, I don't know how to get a job, I don't know how to eat right, I don't know how to exercise, and they're just stuck, and it's terrible. And sometimes doing something radical, like moving out into the middle of Cambodia, or going to the Amazon, or moving into the Arctic, or just like getting a change of scene, or moving onto a farm or something, that can be very effective. I mean, I've heard the opposite as well from people who disagree with me, I suppose. And we'll mention the devil's advocate. We'll say, there's some people who say you take yourself with you wherever you go. You can't run away from your problems. You have to confront your problems. Your problems are within you. Your problems are within your relationship to God or your family, or, you got Jesse Lee Peterson. Do you hate your parents? You got to forgive your parents, that sort of thing. So there is a sense in which people try to run away from their problems into wealth, into business, into college, into foreign countries, into ideologies. People try to escape their problems by, I'm going to become far right, or I'm going to become far left. And at the end of the day, sometimes you're not really addressing the thing right in front of your nose. which is your family life, relationship with God, internal problems, forgiving yourself, forgiving your parents, whatever, you know. So there's an interesting thing, though. You know, Camille Paglia says that suffering is what fuels our art. And so in a way, by like allowing the pain and suffering you have in your life, the damage, the whether it's not necessarily active abuse of people beating you and hitting you, but it's like a passive ennui, a boredom, a lack of stimulation. A sensory deprivation chamber is a form of torture. It actually causes brain damage when we remove the sensory experience from people. It causes brain damage. So it's not just beating people that is abuse, but it's actually depriving people of vital energies, vital forces, contact with nature, contact with authenticity. That's a form of abuse. And if you've been abused in that way, then perhaps doing something radical can help shake that out of you. But it's not going to be, the other thing to understand is, and maybe I shouldn't tell you this because maybe it's going to stop you from doing something radical that will help you. But, you know, oftentimes, or for some people, I'll at least say there's a chance, sometimes, you know, becoming a monk or going a priest. I know people who have gone and they said, I'm going to be a Buddhist, I'm going to be a priest, I'm going to be a monk. And then they leave. You know, it's like, oh, you can't leave. You know, you took the vow, you took the oath, you joined the commune, you know, like you got into the thing and then they leave. It's like, what do you mean you leave? You can't leave. It's like you became a monk, dude. You became a Buddhist. You became a Christian. Like once you put on that clothing and you start eating rice all day and you start praying all day and doing mantras, like you have to stick with it. You can't just leave. But I know people who have left. So it's not necessarily going to solve your problems. Your problems might be something you can't run away from. But yeah, the farming life, for some people, it might be effective. I suggest people really try to shake themselves out of their comfort zone. I think we're all a little bit too, I think basically, if we don't use our muscles, we become weak. And if we don't use our brain becomes weak. And if we don't use our morals become weak. And if we're not constantly challenging ourselves, you know, we don't just stay where we are, we actually become weak. So I think forcing ourselves into new situations is a very healthy thing, just for everybody in general. Now that relates in the Myers-Briggs, I guess, to the judging versus perceiving and immigration and how immigration could be a positive thing. Let us scroll back. I was thinking in terms of over-repeated philosophical mantras and someone else gets credit for the medium is the massage joke. Let's see. We have someone raising up the hands. Thank you. We've got Indo-European weaponry. Yes. The massager. Yeah. Watch out. Because I could totally get somebody with this. You know, this is dangerous. This is like. I don't think I can do that on YouTube. I don't think I can make that gesture. I think we can make this. It's like a question mark. It is like a staff, dude. If this was longer, this would authentically be some kind of weapon. This would be like a fantasy weapon. Like here I charge, these are like the prongs that charge the energy beam, and I'm zapping the Balrog or something. This is like, you know what I want to see? I want to see, what is it called? The techno-futurism, or like, I want to see the Greek statues plus the pink background, whatever you call that, retro wave. I want to see retro wave applied to the fantasy genre. So you're combining, you know, those cars where they leave the trail of energy light behind them as they zoom on, you know what I'm talking about? I want to see that aesthetic, like techno-futurism, but like archaeo-futurism, like combined with magic staffs. I want to see like techno wizards. I want techno wizards with techno hacker staffs. I want to see Julian Assange wearing like pink robes, like shimmering pink techno robes, like casting spells, but he's a hacker. Do you hear what I'm saying here? Are you feeling me? Do you feel what I actually had two of these things. I have some things. I have some things here. Here's the other one. This is a little more, it's actually more effective. It's shorter, but it's, well, I wouldn't say it's softer. It's softer on the end. So that's my collection. of my two weird things. We've got some bands, some exercise bands. We've got some weights. We've got some stuff like that. That's about it. Nothing too crazy. I don't have like a tens unit, at least not yet. Maybe someday. But yeah, we are going in a certain direction here with that. Everyone can see. Everyone knows what's going on. Immigrants medium. Oh boy. Oh boy. X equals D. Yeah. Yeah, that's an element. I mean, the erotic is definitely an element there. He who controls the past controls the present. He who controls the present controls the past. This circular reasoning, circular logic. I don't know how to confront this. I don't know. That is a paradox. How about we just say like power is powerful? Control allows you to control things. True. I'm reading a historical book that presents the successful mythology of the merchant class Godric of Finchale Hanseatic League. Yeah, Hanseatic League, merchant class. That's all interesting stuff. Paul Talk's walking stream make me sad. Yeah, I've heard of Paul Talk. I know there is this Olaf gang. I don't know what they call themselves. I'm just going to call them the Olaf gang. I know there is an Olaf gang that Paul Talk is part of. And they have a certain orientation. See, it's like a bubble. They have like Olaf. It seems to me to be the alpha of the group. He's in the middle. He is the king. He is the chieftain. And then orienting and like orbiting around him are these certain other people. And they kind of like him. And then he kind of maybe likes some of the things I say. One, why do you keep deleting your messages? I don't understand why you like post something and delete it. Anyway, it was I just read it. I just read that you're reading about the Hanseatic League. Why would you delete that? What is wrong with that message? I mean, your comment is preserved in this video forever. It's on the internet. So you're not hiding anything. But anyway, yeah, we were saying that Olaf kind of likes me. And so then people kind of like some of his people who are, it's a spectrum, right? It's a spectrum, like the centrality and then the periphery. And I think like there's some kind of like Venn diagram of overlap and three-dimensional space between that sphere. And then you got my sphere. And Paul Talk is kind of like left out of the overlap. But maybe H9, maybe he knows Paul Talk. Yeah, Paul Talk, he doesn't, I don't connect with him. For whatever reason. France has beautiful neighborhoods. Now it's falling apart. I kind of like falling apart neighborhoods, actually. Kind of like that. I mean, as someone who's not the dictator of the country, there's something aesthetic about the ruin. About the ruin is really it's so nostalgic. It's just so attractive for whatever reason. Is that a worship of death on my part? What does that mean? Is that kind of an autism? Is that kind of a judgmental? In terms of Myers-Briggs, is that my judging coming out that I like the order of the dead ruin, the natural, organic, the peacefulness of it. But, if I was dictator, we would just be building new stuff all the time. We'd be building massive art projects. We would be building just massive amphitheaters. We would be building like giant statues and giant geometries and the architecture. I mean, this would be huge. I would be building the biggest giant Roman columns. I mean, these would be like 20-foot wide Roman columns visible from space. I would build the biggest. I mean, it would make the Colosseum look like a little playpen. I would just build the biggest. I'd be like, oh, what? It's $1 trillion. It's going to bankrupt us. We're probably going to get invaded. We're going to destroy the country. Are you telling me there's going to be a revolt? I'm going to get my head chopped off. Yet didn't care. Built Colosseum. Yeah, I don't care. I'm going to make some art. That's what I would do. That's one of the things. It doesn't really matter though. That kind of thinking. That's bad, right? I'm living in a fantasy land. Hang on, that isn't it. He who controls the past controls the future. He who controls the present controls the past. I think control is just powerful. I think it's just influential in general. I don't know if the chronology. I mean, sometimes it's useful when you talk about a specific thing. You're like, hey, the school teacher, the school board, or the national code of the Department of Education chooses which history books we use, and therefore that influences our opinion of the history of America, and therefore that's going to influence politics going into the future. Like, so you can say it in context in a way that makes sense, but out of context is just kind of a bunch of semantic satiation. French women can't get enough immigrant medium. Yeah, I mean, look, I've talked about. I'm trying to talk. I'm trying to express this in a way that makes sense, where we can actually understand what's going on, rather than being like, making this kind of gallows humor about it. Because I think there's a limit to the productivity of just like, oh man, these women are so silly. And then there's kind of a border between like comedy and then just pure negativity, depression, black pilling, hatred, these sort of things. So trying to go above that spectrum from like silliness to like a sadomasochism, like this realm of negativity, like you either have to laugh or cry. And I'm trying to rise above that and saying like, what is the authentic good thing behind the pro-immigrant movement? Like, what is the authentic, like, why does this exist? It doesn't exist as an arbitrary thing. What is the positive force which is generating this, which is creating this desire, which maybe is being misdirected? Maybe people are being misinformed in some way, but ultimately the desire for an encounter with the other, I think, has some positive virtue. And that's what I'm trying to help people see the bright side of the potentiality of humanity for something good here. Do a chiropractor stream. What does that mean? I'm going to film myself with a chiropractor. They're going to be popping me. I mean, I don't know any chiropractors who are going to come to me and be like, yeah, of course I'll do your little YouTube stream. I don't know about that, but maybe can I crack myself? Can I pop myself if I mean, I could definitely just crack my back like that. That works. But definitely my left, my left scapula right now is just so sore. And it's not even. That's what's messing me up. My right scapula is barely sore at all. My left scapula is like, ooh, it's a targeted soreness. So we'll see about that. We'll have to grab the foam roller. We'll have to get out and do the foam roller. Maybe we'll do that on a stream at some point. I have the longer massager, looks like an S. Wrap the legs around it, pull on the knots. I am short. Yeah, I don't even know what that would look like. What I do is I take the little ball on the end of that, I put it under parts of my body that are sore, and then I use my body weight and I just shove myself into it. Sometimes that works. Try a boomerang for back scratching. That's a very Australian method. Yeah, the boomerang. Okay, we got, can hunt the evil of the world with a garlic farm or grow corn. I disavow corn. Corn is evil. Check out my Twitter for taking a look. Canola oil is a bioweapon. So to increase insulin sensitivity in your diet, eat little or no refined carbohydrates, basically anything made with flour, such as pasta and bread, no sugar, no vegetable oils. Omega-6 fatty acids from vegetable oils initiate or aggravate insulin resistance, while omega-3 fatty acids from fish and fish oil prevent insulin resistance. So when we talk about insulin sensitivity, insulin resistance, it's a whole can of worms there. But yeah, you don't want to increase your insulin resistance. It's basically your sensitivity to sugars. As you increase your insulin resistance, eventually you become diabetic. You don't want to be diabetic. It's a spectrum, actually. It's not either or, black and white. So you can increase or decrease your resistance. You want to have low resistance. You want a little bit of sugar to really impact you. And it's the same way as porn. Like if you watch porn all the time, then your brain is not going, it's going to build up a kind of insulin resistance psychologically. You're going to look at stuff and you're going to be like, next, that's boring, next, whatever. And you're going to want more and more weird, intense stuff. And it's going to cause all kind of psychological moral problems and make you probably a lazy person, a shameful person. You're going to decrease your confidence. How can you look somebody in the eye when you're engaging with all this weird stuff? So there's an analogy there. So you want to be a sensitive person. You want to be sharp. You want to be sensitive psychologically and physically. So the technology to produce vegetable oils didn't exist until about 100 years ago, and people have not had time to genetically adapt to the high amounts of omega-6. So if people hear omega omega acids, omega fatty acids. People have heard of this, but there's a difference between omega-3 and omega-6. Omega-3 is good, omega-6 is bad. Now, the reason I say that, people are going to contradict me, because they're going to say, oh, you should have an equal amount of 3 and 6. They're both good. No, nothing's bad. Look, here's a scientific no. The thing is, because all our processed foods contain too much omega-6, we have an imbalance. To correct that imbalance, basically, you have to lower your omega-6 consumption and increase your omega-3 consumption. If there are very few people who consume more omega-3 than omega-6, that would be like a Japanese fisherman who's just eating fish all day and he's eating no vegetables at all. That would be an example of that. But essentially, most people are just, they're way high in the omega-6, way low on the omega-3. In the graph below, you can see a dramatic increase in soybean oil consumption in the U.S. from 0 to 24 pounds per person per year. So literally from 0 to now, people are literally drinking 24 pounds a year of soybean oil. 7% of all total calories. So 7% of all people's total calories in the United States are coming from soybean oil. And if you go to my Twitter, you look at the pinned post, you're going to see this giant rise in soybean oil that happens at the end of the 1960s. That's causing psychological effects in our population. So there's all kinds of, coconut oil is much healthier for you. Olive oil is healthier. Corn is bad. Cottonseed is bad. Soybean is bad. Then we're going to look at linoleic acid and U.S. body fat. The amount of omega-6 fatty acids found increased by 200% in the past 50 years alone. So in 1960, they have a baseline of where chimpanzees are at. We're pretty much at the same level with chimpanzees, which is natural and good, back in the 1960s. And then progressively over time, you see we rose from about 8% of linoleic acid in subcutaneous fat, which is not like on the surface of the skin. It's the fat, I believe that. Well, let's fact check ourselves, because I know there's different kinds of subcutaneous fat. Let's fact check ourselves on that. It is the jiggly fat visible under the skin. Visceral fat is fat that's around. So I got it backwards. But anyway, so it's the fat in the skin. All right, let's go back to what we're reading there. It's risen now from 8% to almost 24%. So a dramatic rise in literally just 60 years. I mean, this is the public health crisis no one's talking about. People are saying, oh, everyone's bigger, everyone's fatter. But let's actually look at within the fat, what's actually going on, how that influences us psychologically, xenoestrogens, estrogens in general. It's changing the way people think. And then we have a chart with common fats and oils, avoid all that have a high proportion of omega-6. So canola oil is a bioweapon. It's at the top. It has the lowest percentage of saturated fat. You want as much saturated fat as possible. You do not want the mono unsaturated fat, which is an omega-9. You do not want poly unsaturated fat, or actually you do apparently want poly unsaturated fat. Apparently is omega-3. So that might be good. So flaxseed oil might be all right, but then flaxseed oil has its own xenoestrogens. Anything which is a seed or nut, you have to understand when a plant, let's take a pear. A pear is sweet. A pear is delicious. I love a pear. You take a pear, you eat it, it's delicious. Oh, my taste buds, they're so happy. Why? What's going on here? Well, there are two functions of the pear structure. Within the pear is a pit or seed or something. And so, or a nut. They're all really interchangeable words. So essentially there's all this sugar and carbohydrates, all this stuff around the seed or nut or pit or whatever it is to feed it, to allow it to grow and develop from a seed falling into the ground. And then as it falls off the tree, goes into the ground, and then it grows up as a beautiful pear tree, and it's wonderful, and the cycle of life continues. And so when animals come along and they eat the fruit, it goes through the digestive system, and it actually carries the seed or nut or whatever it is to a different place at a different time to spread the growth of that plant across different geographical places so that that plant can survive, via selfish gene Darwinian evolution. But when we eat seeds and nuts and stuff like that, within these seeds and nuts and stuff, there are, I should probably post more diet stuff on my Twitter so I can remember all this stuff. But essentially, there are chemicals within that which are essentially poisons, which are called anti-nutrients, essentially. Maybe if I look, I can find the proper term. The anti-nutrient it starts with a P. It's not phthalates. Give me some examples of some phytic acid. So seeds, nuts, beans, legumes, all of these things contain these phytic acids. I mean, a lot of plants have phytic acids. They are an anti-nutrient. Essentially, what it means is that when I eat peanuts, it says peanuts have this many nutrients, this much protein, but it's also this phytic acid. Phytic acid binds to nutrients so that your body cannot effectively strip them off of the phytic acid, binds it together, makes it impossible for your body to actually use it and make use of it, and it just exits out your excretory system. So really, to avoid phytic acid, or to understand that when you're eating something that has phytic acid or an anti-nutrient, the nutritional content that's on the label is a lie. It's false. It's not taking into account the phytic acid. And so it's not taking into account the amount of inert material. It's basically just fiber that you're ingesting. It's not bad. It's not going to kill you, but it's just less effective than it would be otherwise. So, if you have a choice between coconut oil and canola oil, you have a choice between peanuts or something else, like all of this. And some people, their digestion of phytic acid, the way their body interacts with it, is different for different people. But definitely, corn is evil. Corn is estrogen. Corn is really bad. Corn is just as bad as soy. They say soy boy. Really, they should say corn boy. Corn is evil. Like, this is not a part of the American diet. This has been something that's been introduced since the 1960s. Corn syrup, corn oil, all of that. It is completely big agriculture, big pharma, high-low versus the middle. If you care about your personal health, do not grow corn. Garlic, now garlic is cool. Although garlic also apparently has it's like, as you go into things, it's like there's some positive and negative everything you eat. I mean, I wouldn't recommend. Here's some estrogen-rich foods for breast enlargement. Soy. A full cup of soy contains 24 milligram isoflavones, which are ideal. Tofu has 20 milligrams of isoflavones in 3 ounces. Sesame seeds. 1 ounce of sesame seeds will give you 11.2 milligrams of phytoestrogen. Flax seeds, you can get almost 40,000 mcg, which I'm guessing is micrograms. So you can get 0.3 grams of phytoestrogen from 100 GM of flaxseed. What is GM? Granule meters? I don't know what that means. Garlic, you can get 603 mcg of phytoestrogen from 100 grams of garlic. So the amount in garlic is not, I mean, unless you're eating a lot of cooked garlic, it's not going to be a problem. Garlic obviously has health benefits in small amounts, like having a couple of fresh cloves. And it's going to be best when it's raw. But, that's an issue. Black beans contain the most phytoestrogen, about 5,000 mcg per 100 grams. Walnuts, you can receive 26 mcg of phytoestrogen from 100 grams. Sunflower seeds, 1,000 grams of sunflower seeds will give you 2. I hate how they just don't break it down. You can tell who the audience is here because they're not just breaking it down statistically for you using, standard measurements and comparing like a bar graph or something. Peanuts, 100 grams of peanuts give you 34 UG of phytoestrogen. Almonds, 131 of phytoestrogen from 100 grams of almonds. So yeah, that's all information about phytoestrogen. You notice, what is this? We've got soy, which is a legume, black beans, which are a legume, and tofu, which is from soy. So you've got legumes, then you've got sesame seeds, flax seeds, all kinds of seeds, and then you have walnuts, peanuts, almonds. So basically, your 3 things to avoid here are legumes, seeds, and nuts. And then you also have the garlic just randomly there. I don't know why. But those are the big things. It is seeds, legumes, and nuts have these phytoestrogens, have this phytic acid. There's issues there. Just be aware of it. I'm not saying you have to stop eating it or you're going to die, or it's going to poison you or turn you into something you don't want to be. But I'm just saying, be aware, just understand, just be an informed consumer, right? Okay, we've got the Ultimate TV gang in here. Is Cleon, I'm guessing you're saying Jordan Peterson, not Cleon. Is Cleon Peterson's message a prime example of art inspired by suffering? civilization could be energized by art. Oh, now I know what we're saying. Now I know what we're saying. Now I remember this guy, Cleon Peterson. Could our civilization be? He's just not a good artist. I just don't. I don't think this is. I'm not into this guy, but I'm stating it in an abstract sense. I'm stating that. Oh boy, I don't know, dude. He's intentionally. He is intentionally someone who is, controversial, and someone who is trying to provoke controversy. So, Cleon Peterson to me is a 4chan poster. Cleon Peterson is like, how can I make people upset? How can I create something obscene for the sake of being obscene and mess with people and make them angry and create a reaction? So this is what Cleon Peterson does, right? Cleon Peterson takes these, I think people have seen the art. I think people know what's going on with this guy. I think they've seen this. I think they know what's going on. So to me, it's like a 4chan post. To me, it's not very substantive. I think just shocking people is not something I embrace. But what I'm saying is that the desire for mass immigration comes from a desire to be shocked. So we just have to understand that and navigate it, not embrace it and become Cleon Peterson. I'm a techno wizard. You like the techno music? Daft Punk. Paul Talks Yang is bigger than Olaf's. Yeah, that's possible. I don't see Paul. Maybe it's a generational thing. I don't know. But there's so much information. Listen, folks, I don't think the people understand. There is so much information. There's so many content creators. How many viewers do we have? I've been going for 2 hours. I have 16 viewers, 8 thumbs up. I mean, this is weird. Frankly, this is weird. I'm not going to lie to you. This is weird. It is weird that I am producing 2 hours of content for an audience of 15 people. That is extremely strange and weird. Like, we have to just acknowledge this. So there is so much information. I'm creating a whole lot of information. Paul Talk's creating information. Everyone's creating information. No one has the time to watch all of this. No one has the time to listen to all of this. So how do we deal with this information overload? Well, we just have to start, saying, well, do you have a college degree? Oh, you don't? Well, let's throw your application out. Or do we, or do you check these boxes? Oh, you don't check the boxes? Okay, goodbye. So we start to develop these discriminating factors that we might have not necessarily had in the past to basically ignore people within this vast ocean of information so that we have some kind of focus so that we can decide what things we want to watch and what things we don't want to watch, rather than just being completely random. That would be interesting. There have been countries which have fooled around with the idea of, like, we're a country, we have a Twitter account, and every single day we give the Twitter account to somebody different. That's an interesting idea. It would be interesting if, like, you have the idea of public access TV is like this, or even YouTube, when it promoted my videos in people's sidebars before, basically I was shadow banned. But you have an effect of what if there was like a mass, what if on your birthday or something, like, you got to be on public access TV and you got to do a presentation and everyone was like forced to watch it or something like that. I mean, that kind of egalitarianism ultimately doesn't work. We have to focus our attention on certain things. We have to use some sort of judgment to say, who should we listen to? Who shouldn't we listen to? And obviously most people, we've got 17 people out of the millions of YouTube viewers. I think, when you look at what's reasonable to expect, a few thousand concurrent views. I mean, the most popular streamers on YouTube get thousands of concurrent viewers. I have 17. So obviously people have looked at me and my content and said, this is not worth my time. This is not worth promoting or spreading. But there are 17 people who, for whatever reason, are interested. There are 11 people who have decided to thumbs up the video. So out of the potential millions or thousands or however many it is, people, for whatever reason, at this point in time, 12 people have decided that they think this is worth spending their time and attention while they're doing other things in the background, playing video games, browsing the internet, eating food, whatever they're doing. Or maybe they're just glued to the screen in the same way that I'm glued to the screen right now and paying attention to this chat, paying attention to this camera. And maybe we are in a synchronicity of we are exactly attuned to one another, and we are like in the same room, basically. You know, this small group of 14 people who have thumbs up the video. Man Biker Mice from Mars, that was a good show. Biker Mice from Mars, is that a real show, or are we just being a little bit zany? Biker Mice from Mars. This was a real show that lasted for 3 seasons? Oh my goodness. Well, is this about techno wizards? Is that what Biker Mice from Mars is? Olaf gang is a rhizomatic structure. Yeah, there are obviously some gangs that are more rhizomatic than arborescent. Work it, music, do it harder. Abandoned malls and factories are so aesthetic. Yeah, I prefer abandoned like buildings. I prefer brick and mortar buildings that are falling apart as opposed to malls and factories personally. Doesn't Olaf have like 2 videos total? Yeah, but he's for whatever reason he caught my attention. He's just an aesthetic gentleman. He just has that 5 o'clock shadow. He's into literature, you know. He's got something to him where I feel like his mind is clogged. You can hear this when he says like, you know, I want to like move to the woods, or I want to move to the farm, but I can't do that right now. It's like he's being held back by his response. He has responsibilities to other people in his life, so he has to balance that with his idealizations. But you know, I see a potentiality in him of like, you know, maybe it's going to be his kids. Maybe he's going to raise his kids to be thoughtful, and he's going to grant them, you know, the power of discernment. And these kids are going to be some superhuman kids. You know, maybe that's important. Maybe that's more important, or just as important as doing something yourself. But different people are going to do different things, right? Some people are more investing in the future, and some people are more living in the present. And we can't just do one or the other, right? We all got to diversify. Greek architecture visible from space? Yes. Someone understands me. Thank you. It's in Orwell saying, massage your traps to alleviate neck stiffness. My neck doesn't feel that stiff. I mean, oh, well, now that you mention it, but really it's my scapula. Really, it's like inside my scapula that is on my left side. So sore right now. It feels like someone's like jabbing me constantly with their thumb right under my scapula. It's not comfortable. Try placing the massager on the knot, moving your body around it instead of the other way around. Hold in place and move your body. Yeah, that's generally what I do. Rundown bodies look great, but it's the social ruin that makes me sad. Paul was confronted by a couple of gang members for recording inside a half-abandoned mall. That is very sad. That is very sad. You know, I don't wish that upon Paul. But yeah, there is something sad about it. So that's why I say, look, you know, when I see something, I try to appreciate it for what it is, or it's not even something I try to do. It's just naturally aesthetically, like I have some kind of nostalgia for the mystery of the past, or whatever it is, the fantasy, the legend. It's like Stonehenge. There's something within me that resonates. I don't know why. It's a cultural meme. It's something I was taught, or something I was born with. I don't really understand the origin of this nostalgia over abandoned structures and ruined structures. There seems to be something magical. It represents like chronology, age. Like there seems to be a power in its lasting. It becomes a fetish object representing the power of Kronos, the god of time. So there's something there. But obviously, if I was in charge, which I never will be, but if I was in charge, then obviously I would, demolish or renovate old structures and make everything look new and make giant Greek architecture. I'm not being humorous. Jeez. Yes, you are, and you're gonna be banned, sir, because I know who you are. I don't even remember what username you used last, but I don't. It's one thing when you comment on my videos and I can ignore them. It's another thing when I'm reading through a live stream and then you kind of mess up my live stream by saying these things that are. It's one thing if you're like, haha, I'm joking, it's funny, but your commitment to a bad, stupid joke becomes irritating, becomes annoying. And you can psychoanalyze me. You can do a Freudian analysis and show how I'm so weak and fragile because I can't take a joke, and I don't really care. So there's that. Here we go. Dietitian, nutrition expert, personal trainer, chiropractor, anti-xenoestrogen activist. Those are all accurate, accurate aspects. I come to this channel for the diet advice. Yeah, that's probably the best thing it has going for it. Fiber is not going to kill you, but too much will inflame your intestinal lining. True. Corn boy will not catch on because corn is phallic. I hear what you're saying. But it's not going to catch on, but it's just true. Leafy greens are poison. You feed them to a baby, it'll start crying. Yeah, please feed babies milk, not leafy greens. Gaucho diet, beef and yerba. I don't know what yerba is. Let's take a look at yerba. Yerba mate. Is this like a tea? Yeah, I've never had yerba mate. Grass or weed. French botanist. Paraguay. Yeah, I've never had this yerba mate. I've heard of it. I've never tried it though. Let's see. Okay, more. Yeah, I guess I've blocked. Is that seriously the extent of your analysis? Yeah, it's a trap. I'm feeding the troll, right? I'm reading the message and I'm like, he's challenging me. He's like, do you have, give me an intellectual response to cuckoldry. Like, imagine like hating yourself, isn't that somehow like a way we could revitalize European civilization? Like hating yourself and sitting in the corner and masturbating, isn't that truly the way to succeed? And like it's antinatalism, right? So you're it's like an antinatalism that disguises itself as like a pronatalism. So it's very maybe a Chiron. Like I'm trying to get somewhere with this. It's like Chiron. He's like, through our nihilism, we can recreate fanaticism. Through cuckoldry, we can recreate strength. By masturbating in the corner, we can recreate European civilization. By allowing ourselves to like be voyeuristic, like feminized, by being passive, like somehow this will result in revitalization. It's maybe there's some kind of like Chiron in there, some kind of like Chiron philosophy. But the presentation is just, it is intended to provoke controversy. It is a 4chan meme we have seen before. If I feed this to a baby, will it cry? Is an effective heuristic. Good info. I agree, his art doesn't come close to reaching the potential of what we are capable of, but that potential could be met, should it? Yeah. You know what I think? I don't know. If you deterritorializing and reterritorializing. If you expose children to violence, you will damage children. You're going to cause problems, and you're going to make those children very violent. So, I mean, it sounds like the logical conclusion of your argument, like if we continue with this, is you're like arguing for child abuse because it's going to make a more like, it's going to increase our vitality in some way. Like we're going to break through some psychological barrier and get to the other side where these new like violent men can recreate civilization from the ground up. That's not really something I advocate for. I mean, you could say it's kind of the classic weak men, bad times, strong men, good times, heuristic. Like, so maybe, but it's not something I advocate for. It's too contradictory. I mean, history itself, like, I'm never going to say, let's create bad. I mean, that's the accelerationist argument, right? Let's create bad times so that we can have strong men. Like, let's intentionally mess everything up so we can have strong men. But no one actually thinks like that, right? That's not a popular message. Maybe in some kind of like high-low versus the middle, maybe like you could appeal to elites. Like I'm sure that dude, I forgot his name already, but maybe that Peterson, Cleon Peterson, maybe you could show his art to elites and they would like it and buy it, which I think they do. And you could make those kind of arguments to them, which maybe they do. I don't know. I haven't spoken to them, but maybe that is maybe that is an elite strategy. But the populist strategy, like the populist strategy, is probably not to do that. So it kind of depends on who do you think you are. You're making comments on a live stream with 16 viewers. What effect do you think that's going to have? Do you think you're going to reach the elites and cause a change in our civilization? Or are you just sort of engaging in some like weird fetishistic inversion? Like, I don't know. The fact that I'm drawn into this troll probably says something bad about me, right? But that's the way it goes. Rousseau used to perform 6-hour-plus long public readings from his Confessions. I think the longest he went was 11 hours. Yeah, that's absolutely true, Menthol. We've covered that on this channel. We'll eventually get there, right? We'll eventually reach there. We're just going to have to start earlier in the day because I'm not going to go that late into the night. The ADL band, Ken. No, it just means I used to be suggested in the sidebar of people, because I would see it if I was on YouTube and I was viewing someone else's video, I wasn't logged into my account, YouTube would suggest my videos to me. It'd say, oh, you like this? Maybe you should check out this. It would suggest my channel, you know, within my own little sphere. And I was like, oh, wow, this is cool. This is interesting. And new people would come to my channel. That doesn't happen anymore. New people don't come to my channel. It's all the same, you know, the same 14 people who have always been here, which is too bad. Let's see. I could be watching Netflix right now and be grateful. I'm not grateful. Please go back to watching Netflix. Falling into the digital atmosphere. Bad news, Ken. I watch your show on 4 alts at the same time, so it's more like 20 people. Well, if you watch my show on 4 alts at the same time, that means we have 11 people watching now. So it's more like, so you got your math wrong, I guess. So you don't understand math, maybe. I'm not sure. And then talk amongst myself in the chat. Well, Randy, you're a very entertaining guy. I'll say that. Thank you for your presence. Why not? Really, why not? Why not what? Hey, the massager was from a, the scrolling. The massager was from a techno age, and Daft Punk has a song named Techno Logic, and they come from space and wear biker helmets. That's why we have to mention Biker Meister Mars. Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. That's kind of what I thought. But they're not exactly wizards. I'm looking for techno wizards. Let's see. Let's look for techno wizards on Google image search. Let's see what comes up if we have any techno wizards. Techno wizard. Yeah, I'm seeing some good pictures here. Some good techno wizards. There's one good picture from Pinterest. It's a concept sketch of a techno wizard. Yeah, I really want to go into this idea. I really want to push this idea of a techno wizard. Okay, here's one for you. It's called Gene Forge. This is a video game. Gene Forge is like we've used genetic editing to create magical creatures. It's kind of like Pokemon. I mean, Pokemon's kind of like Techno Wizards, but GeneForge is a cool one. I suggest people check out GeneForge. We have the Virgin Rebel versus the Chad Shaper. Yeah, I mean, GeneForge is just a cool game. If you read the lore of GeneForge by Spiderweb Software, GeneForge is just cool. When's the last time they came out with a new game? There used to be a lot of free games on here. You had to pay for some, and then you had others were free. He keeps making new games at Vernum. Queen's Wish the Conqueror. His all his graphics are so old school. Like, he just doesn't care. He's just like, yeah, we're gonna have graphics. They're gonna be old. It's good. It's all good. We're just gonna let the graphics be what they are and not worry too much about it. And I appreciate that, you know. I appreciate what's going on there. So he's been working for 25 years making games. We're going to plug him. We'll plug Spiderweb Software. He's got some cool stuff going on. Talk amongst thyself. Good enough for me. I really get me, you know. Genetic memory on the ancient structures. I don't know, possibly. I don't know what you're talking about. H9. I don't know. Yeah, Obelisk Respecter. Yep. Bad news. Hopefully we are the elites that he is addressing. Let's see. I thought that Obelisk guy was at least original, but apparently that is a tactic that Asian Identity Reddit has posted up. Okay, interesting. Haven't been following that. What's Ken's Twitter? Well, if you go to my DLive page, I have a link to my Twitter there. So it's a very esoteric and hidden Twitter. But guys, we've been going for 2 hours, 21 minutes here. You know, I don't think I have much more to say. I mean, we could obviously keep going indefinitely, but I think we're going to end it there. A little bit of a bad start, a little bit of a troubled start today, but that's okay. You know, we've had technical difficulties before. Things aren't going to be perfect. It is what it is. We'll try we'll try better next time. I don't think Asian Identity is running ops on me in particular, but the idea that there are some people who might be following those tactics similarly, I think that is possible. I haven't confirmed it, but anything's possible. And the hour vanished, yes, but that's it. That's all she wrote. Okay. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye-bye. I do not sound like the guy from Survivor. Oh, boy.